AJ wants to know if you've ever code red him before to hit him and what you thought about the recent back and forth with the Padres and Dodgers. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me here, boys. And yeah, listen, we had a lot of reason to code red AJ, but never did, right?
That
I
is a
think
lie.
something
That is a
that
bull-faced lie, Joe. Because Kelvin Escobar hit me after we beat you in '05. The next year, my first at bat, and you weren't the manager, but you were the bench coach. So I'm blaming Sosha and you. And
go
then,
ahead.
and and then there was one in 2012. You were still in Tampa, and Alex Cobb hit me after you guys thought I had a dirty slide on Zobrist, and then Quintana threw behind Ben Zobrist. You guys all whined, and that was the famous Hawk Harrelson. Wagner, what are you doing?
See, when you have a really good veteran team, the manager never has to say anything, and you know that. It's never it really it should never have to come from the manager. These are the kind of things you talk about in spring training, and it's always about defending your own brood. My experience has been most of the times when this has occurred, it's obviously obvious when it should happen. But what normally occurs is that a veteran pitcher will mosey up to somebody, whether it's somebody in the bullpen coming into the game, a guy in the pen, or somebody on the bench itself. But these are conversations we all have in spring training. I can honestly tell you, I've never went up and told or asked anybody to hit a batter, but it's been done because of the unwritten rules. And you guys were talking about something previous to this about pitchers that cannot do it. I'll tell you why. I mean, I had a young pitcher with the Rays that one of the dudes asked him to hit somebody. And this guy was totally freaked out about it. He's a really good pitcher because he had never done it before and he didn't want to do it. And it puts the guy in a very difficult situation. So really, when it's asked of a pitcher to do something like this, and I know like Ozzie would get upset if somebody didn't drill somebody at the right time. I know that, but you have to ask the right guys. Chuck Finley, one of the best. Chucky would pick out a thigh. That was his big thing. Like I think Eric brought up about, or somebody brought up about throwing behind the guy at his butt. Pick out a thigh is always the most effective way.
Joe, I one time got in trouble from a manager because I told one of our pitchers to hit somebody because they hit Yelly 3 times in a row, and the Cardinals just nobody on our team. And I got aired out by Craig Counsell. So have you seen it where managers only want to be the one that ordering the code red?
I can't say that specifically because I know Soch never wanted to throw at anybody. I'm going to tell you that right straight up. Soch did not like that at all. And again, like I've not specifically seen that, no. But again, back to my original point, conversation in spring training was always about protecting one another. You talk about the Cardinals. The time I was with the Cubs, the Cardinals, as much as anybody, would throw at somebody. That was part of their culture there, and you knew that. And I remember specifically there was a situation in Wrigley where I felt that was happening against us. And my comment afterwards was that we don't start anything, but we're going to stop stuff. We'll stop something that occurs. So if you in fact believe you're being attacked, of course you have to retaliate. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about the narrative that's been created in today's game. It's just the way things need to be done. I'll tell you, the 2008 Rays ascended as quickly as we did because of the fight we had in spring training with the Yankees and then the fight we had with the Red Sox during the season, because we had to take that division. Nobody was going to give it to us. And these guys were pushing the Devil Rays around for years. So I think the two of the biggest moments or seminal moments in the history of the Rays was the fight when Elliot Johnson pancaked Francisco Cervelli at home plate in a spring training game. And the other one was when Shields got Coco Crisp in the thigh to start the game after there was an issue the night before. These, listen, people could argue all they want, but these are the kind of things that may be necessary to galvanize a team. And all of a sudden, yeah, you start believing in yourself. You become a little bit tougher, quite frankly. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't want anybody throwing anybody's head. Absolutely not. That's not the point. Picking out a thigh is the pro way of doing it.
All right, 2 things. One, Ozzie once, you mentioned that he got mad. I was there for that. I was catching. I got hit twice. He told somebody to throw at a guy. He missed. He then took him out. It's a whole saga. It still is raging today because the kid got sent down. He was getting sent down regardless, but he missed. And then Ozzie came out and put on a show, and it was a big. And I had nothing to. I didn't even tell anybody to hit anybody. Somehow I get that I didn't tell anybody to hit anybody. I didn't know what was going on. I knew that he was getting sent down after the game. It just sucked for the kid. Whatever. I apologize. I had nothing to do with it. So, but then my question is, because I've also seen this one, because so I had Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly wouldn't put a young kid in to hit a guy. He would say, rookie, no, I want a veteran because of what you said. Now, have you ever had a guy tell you no? Because I've seen that happen too, where a manager has gone to a player and said, I want you to hit this guy, and this pitcher said, no, I'm not doing it?
Again, I've never said that directly to a pitcher. I have not. I know that you'll see that, like I said, a vet might mosey up to somebody in between innings, or it could come from the bullpen. It comes from a bunch of different directions. I've seen guys attempt to hit somebody and miss, and at some point you got to stop trying. I mean, you just can't keep throwing at him like he's a dartboard. That's not the point. So I've seen that where it's failed, and then you got to move on at some point. You don't want to hurt anybody, even when you throw at and sometimes miss intentionally. At least the message has been sent. Of course, the guy on your team that had been hit really would prefer a pound of flesh. I understand that, but there's the nuance of doing something like this. The hit needs to be below the waist, I believe, and then sometimes it has to be done. The message has been sent, and I'll argue that with anybody. Today's world, uh, especially, well, let's just say the sports world in baseball, doesn't believe in this kind of stuff. You get to the point where there's an instant replay going on, things are being reviewed, and you have guys from two different teams standing on second base, arm in arm practically, looking at the scoreboard, because all this stuff really, I think, subtracts emotion from the game. The technology, more technology involved, the less emotion involved. So that part of it I don't like. So you're seeing that more today. Nobody really wants to be that group. But I didn't see the Padre Dodger exchange, by the way. I'd have to check that out. But in today, I could see Schulte with the Padres. I get that, David with the Dodgers. And these are two of the better teams. You have to take your own turf, man. Nobody's going to give it to you.
Agreed. All right, let's go into something a little bit just as crazy as throwing at guys. Rafael Devers, you talk about emotion. Well, this got emotional for the Red Sox and for him. How would you have handled this situation if you were the manager of the Red Sox? I mean, what's your thoughts on this? Because you've been through a lot.
Yeah, it starts in the beginning. I guess that's yogiism. The moment that they knew they wanted to get Bregman, and they had a chance to get Bregman, I think that's when the dialogue needed to be created. Now, with Devers, I know that the concern there is that, well, what if we don't sign him? And we broached the subject, and all of a sudden he's going to be upset. So I'm going to talk to Devers. We might get Bregman. All of a sudden it doesn't happen. Are we going to inflict some kind of a mental injury on him because we've talked about it? There's a fairness about that point. However, if they knew they were really down the road with Bregman, this stuff was going to happen. I think at that point the conversation had to begin. So that. Number two, Bregman has to be the third baseman, no question. There's no parceling around that. The point I think where they made the mistake is to tell him to put his glove down completely. At that point there, I kind of believe I would have asked him to continue to take ground balls at both third and first base. And then beyond that, you try to get him a game, maybe once a week on defense somewhere, either at third or first, or maybe one at each place. Give Bregman a day off, give the first baseman a day off, etc., and keep this guy solvent and keep him on the field. Because when you get guys that young, they just want to turn them into DHs. It's not easy. I was part of 4 outfielders with the Angels: Erstad, Salmon, Edmonds, and G.A. Garrett Anderson in the 90s. At some point there, we thought, oh, this is a great idea. One of them will DH per week. We'll give the other, so they get one day off a week, and we'll rotate it that way. It's going to be wonderful. They hated it. They absolutely hated it. When you're talking about younger players, the thought of kind of being castrated, I'm not a player anymore, I can't be on the field, bothers them a lot, and you're really slicing into ego at that point too. So those are the points that you have to be careful with. And the conversation has to be frank, has to be honest. Don't dissemble. None of the executive talk. Front office, stay out of this. Let Alex handle that. Too many chefs, not good. So there's a lot of things that went wrong with this. But from the beginning, I call Jack Ryan as a protagonist in all the Clancy novels. No, Mr. President, he wasn't your friend. He wasn't just a friend of yours. He was your best friend. Go right to it. Run towards the issue. Don't tap dance around it, because eventually it turns into Devers playing in San Francisco.
Does this feel like something that the front offices nowadays maybe overstep the manager? And did you need to keep that? Did you need to keep that at length when you were a manager? Like, hey, I need you to stay up in your front office. I'll take care of what's going on in the field, in the clubhouse. Or is that something that the game has changed since the years you've been, how long you've been in it?
The game hasn't changed. The administration of the game has changed. Yes. I mean, everybody always talks about the game has changed, and I dispute that. It's the same game. But how we're administrating it is different. And yes, when I was back in, the 80s and 90s, whatever, when I was trying to get to the big leagues, GMs were afraid to come in clubhouses. You never saw them. You never saw front office personnel in clubhouses. They did their job, which was to acquire players, keep everything rolling properly, put seats in this, put fannies, butts in the seats, et cetera, et cetera. But they weren't they were never really involved in the coaching of, the distribution of information, whatever. You had advanced scouts, you had your coaches on the team, you had your manager who normally set the patterns for the whole organization. Now, I'm not here to tell you that that was all correct. I used to get upset with that because I thought we have a new manager with every 2 or 3 years with the Angels back in the day, and you're constantly turning over your cutoffs and relays, your first and third plays. Offensively, what was important is the bunt good. Buck Rogers, like the stink play, like stealing third base on a bunt with a delay steal a second. Every manager brought his own stuff into the mix. Today, that's not true. And I like I said, I disputed that. I wanted to see more of a homogenized method of the Angels play, regardless of who the manager was. Now it's gone to the absolute opposite extreme, where the homogenization comes from the front office, and the manager pretty much is at the whim of all that, or at the edict of all that. We, as managers today, definitely is a middle manager. Gene Bach would not get a job today. Earl Weaver would not get a job today. Whitey Herzog would not get a job today. That kind of authoritarian authority figure, somebody that really knew what he wanted and what he liked, would have never been listened to. That guy would have never had this opportunity. You'd have never heard of these people if the game was administrated back then like it is now. So game is the same. The way it's being, like I said, processed on a daily basis is completely different. And so the front office is way more involved in daily conversations, analytical departments way more involved in instruction, quite frankly. And they're down in the field before the game. They're in bullpens, they're in batting cages, or every place they should not be. So yes, that's what's different about the game, not the game itself.
It might be that time. If you're looking for a new car, there's one place to go that is going to take care of you, and it's Car Gurus.
Yeah. Looking for a car should be fun, not exhausting. Everywhere else, it's exhausting. You're dodging people. You're trying to can I look at this car? Car Gurus, you type in your search, you find the color that you want, it narrows it down for you, and all of a sudden you're like, this has been an exciting experience, and you got a great deal.
With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the US, so you can find the best deal. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com. Cargurus.com.
Have you ever needed to stand on business, as the kids say, when a player says something to you?
Oh.
Rob Thompson said Nick Castellanos, after he got taken out of the game, went too far. His comments went too far. And Rob Thompson was standing on business and said, you know what? You're not playing today.
I don't think I've ever told somebody he's not playing based on what he said to me. I'm pretty sure. Although I did have one situation, though. I'll go back. I'm not going to name names, but I had an issue with one player, called him in, had a couple of the coaches with me so that everything I said was verified or validated, and told me he wasn't going to play until a certain thing occurred. And so I did that. But it wasn't something he had said. It's something that I did not like on the field. So that's what that was from. And then after a day or two, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm wrong. He was not wrong. He was wrong in a sense, but I was totally wrong the way I presented it to him. So I apologized to him, and I put him back in the lineup after a couple of days, because after I evaluated what I had said and the process that I went through, I thought my process was wrong even more than his was. So that happened one time. Otherwise, I've taken guys out of games for different reasons, but this always like a warning in advance. If they're breaching some of the, I had some really easy or no rules at all. My rule for the position players was to respect 90 feet. And my rules for the pitchers were I wanted you to work on your defense on a daily basis. Whatever that meant, just please, I want good defensive pitchers. Other than that, man, you were on your own. I'm not a big believer in rules. I think integrity has no need. There's no need of rules if you have integrity. You answer these questions to yourself. And one of my opening dialogues to all my players always was, you know the difference between right and wrong. You don't have to wait for me to tell you that. You grew up with some great parents. I think we all are born with this innate ability to determine what is right and what is wrong. Choose right. That's exactly what I tell my guys. So, excuse me, the situation with Rob, he had a choice there. He could have chosen not to say anything at all. He could have just taken what Nick said after the game, called him in the office, yelled at one another, and then figured it out after then. But he made up his mind to do what he did. But I do respect what he did, Robbie. That is, he was honest with the press. He didn't have to tell them exactly what was said, but he told them why Nicky wasn't playing. He didn't dissemble. He didn't give it any executive talk. And I love that about him.
What would you tell Dave Roberts about handling Shohei now that he's back pitching and hitting? Is there a difference in handling him as just a hitter versus when he has to pitch and hit?
The thing I did with him was we had a conversation every night before the next day. So after the game's over, how you feeling? The big thing he had told me early on was show we first determined that we're going to do both things with him in that spring training. He was only concerned about his legs and how his legs felt. So it was fair. It's a fair point. I said, okay. So every night, Ipe is at that time his assistant would text Ipe or talk to Ipe, and he would go to show, and we would say, okay, what do we got for tomorrow? How are we feeling for tomorrow? Is there anything you don't want to do tomorrow? That kind of a thing. Are you good? And that would be the conversation. So the only thing I would do, here's the issue here. Don't think that you know. I mean, we don't know. We've never done what Show does. I did it Little League, maybe twice a week, right? Never did it every day on a big league level. Played multiple positions. So nobody's ever done this. So to think that you know, or to think that there's some kind of algorithm that's going to determine what's going to prevent him from getting injured, not true. So I would just communicate with him nightly after tonight's game or playing tomorrow, day or whatever. Show what he got. He'll say, let me get to you in the morning. Get back to you in the morning, and then that's it. I'm going to go off of his conversation, because you have to understand, it's an overused term, but he is the unicorn. Nobody's done what he's done before. So you have to listen to him in this situation.
What kind of answer would he give you? Would it just be like,
yeah,
I'm good to go, thumbs up? Or would he get into it like, hey, my legs are really sore. I don't think I can give you stolen bases, but I'd love to be in the lineup. How in depth would he give you?
Exactly. That's pretty accurate right there. Normally he would always be good. Show likes to play. He likes to play. And if you remember when we first did this, we didn't have the Shohei rule. So when he pitched, we played with the regular National League lineup at that time. And then once we took him out of the game, I'd put him in right field. The DH would come out of the game, and we would play we took him out of the game and had to move things around. So it was a National League game. And then once I took him out of the game, once he was next to that bat, I'd have to put a right fielder, but the pitcher would be in a lineup. So that's how it began. So there was a little bit more involvement. I had to be aware of how he felt taking him out of the game, like 6th inning, 5 2/3, whatever it was. Here he comes, one more at bat. You feel good enough to go out to right field right now, play an out or two, then come back and get your at bat and then be done. That was like the most difficult decision at that particular point, was how to utilize that. Otherwise, he would I think he pitched the first game of a doubleheader, and then played a DH in the second game, and no problem. He's just an incredible. Whatever he does in his workout routine, which is pretty private, because you don't see a lot of him before the game. He's always doing something, but he's incredibly strong. So I can't remember, maybe once or twice, I might have asked him strongly, because come on, you got to take a break at some point. And I think he did, and I can't remember specifically when, but it was an easy conversation. He wants to play. You got to watch him, but you got to trust him.
Joe, what would you do now? I mean, he's almost 31, and there's been some surgeries, right? The elbow again, shoulder, all of that. Of course, for most baseball fans, we want to see him do this, pitch and hit, for as long as possible, because this might be the only time we get to see it for most of us in our lifetime. Would you try to see if you can talk him into an extra off day here and there, even from hitting, especially once he's built up to 5 or 6 innings? Or is it still just all, hey, You tell me how you're feeling and what you want to do. Because, I mean, the topic that our guys have brought up, obviously they haven't done both, but they're like, can it affect his hitting in any way? It didn't in the past, but can it now, surgeries and years later in his life?
Well, I think you could talk about it. I think, again, I always like to be proactive in front of the situations like this. And so you would probably try to create different potential scenarios that we might want to adjust to as this thing is in progress. But I mean, right now, that was one inning the other day. He probably handled that very, very well. I think once we get to the All-Star break, I think they're going to ramp him up to about 4 or 5 innings by the time he gets to the break in an effort to get him to become more of a normal member of the rotation. After that, I think when you get post All-Star break, that's when you may want to really start checking in on things like this. But again, he will tell you, there's one thing about him, and that's what you got to do. You just establish the trust through conversation, and the fact that he gets to know you, and you know that you're being honest and upfront with him. I think that's not called for, unlikely that maybe he may require a day off after he pitches. And then who knows, they could even line it up to the point where maybe there's a day off after the day pitches. They could be very creative with this in an effort to not miss any time on the field. So you can look at this so many different ways in regards to how you want to get this done. And maybe the schedule just runs for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then we might say, we just need you to take a day here somewhere because there's no real built-in break in the schedule. So just look at it. You always got to have to get in advance of this kind of stuff. And I've talked about this before. They're probably going to look at the World Series postseason and work it backward when we get right after the All-Star break, and then determine how many innings potentially he's going to pitch and how comfortable they are with that. But knowing that, they have to keep in mind next year, they're going to want to have them stretched out to a certain number so that we don't go through this same routine next year of trying to figure out how many innings we can pitch him.
So last one before we let you go. You mentioned communications and talks, and someone in the chat had a great, I think it was Mike G. He's a Cubs fan. So he wants to know, if you had such great communication, how come you couldn't get Jon Lester to throw over to first base?
Dude, we've tried. That was a big part of it. We did. We had special sessions out on the Hatfield at Sloan Park. Here's what we did eventually. Okay. What bothered John more than anything? Throwing over to first base. See, well, my final determination was, John, you're never going to have to throw over to first base. This is what we're going to do instead. What we did instead was, John, you have a couple different things you can do. You could hold the ball a little bit longer. At that time, you can step off. John, you could quick pitch, or we could pitch out. Furthermore, I wanted Riz to dance back and forth off the bag and back to try to create doubt in the base runner's mind. And from home plate, whether it was Rossi or Contreras, we had really good throwers. I wanted a lot of back pitch at first base, because if the runner at first base in any way, shape, or form decides, so maybe I'm going to go, then says no, and he gets in that nowhere's land, he knows we have really good throwing catchers. Furthermore, when these runners used to get so far off because they thought they could, they became uncomfortable. They've never been that far off the bag, and they were always, regardless of they in the back of their mind, they knew Johnny would not do it. But what if we just did a quick step pitch out? He's going to be out also. So I wanted to focus on the things that he can do and felt comfortable with, as opposed to the one thing he could not do and was uncomfortable with.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.